Would you rather do business with this person or with this person? Or how about this person versus these people? If you could choose between working with them or with those people, who would you choose? Now, my guess is most of you probably already know who you would choose to work with, even before you even spoke with any of them. But my question is that right? Is it right to discriminate against people based on how they look? How would you feel if you were on the receiving end of that discrimination? So in this video, I want to talk about how buyer love letters can lead to this type of discrimination and why this is problematic when it comes to real estate. Hey, what's up? It's Ben here with Triple Cord Real Estate. On my channel, I talk about the Boise housing market and all kinds of other things related to living here in the Treasure Valley. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. There are no homes available anywhere in the United States. The lack of inventory is a problem that we are seeing across the board, all across the United States. So the question is, how do you get a house? How do you win? Well, one thing that some people do is they write a buyer love letter to the seller. And what that is it's basically you appealing to the seller and telling the seller, listen, this is why I am different from all of the other potential buyers. Dear seller, thank you for allowing me to walk through your wonderful home. It's beautiful. I love the color scheme and the French doors in the back. This is exactly what our family is looking for. We've been looking for a home close to West Side where we've enrolled our 2 sons. And to top it all off, your home is right near the church that we attend. So on the surface, this is not a bad strategy. Let's get the seller to see us as individuals, as people, and maybe that will give us a better chance of getting our offer accepted. Now the problem with this is the Fair Housing Act prohibits against discrimination based on race, color, sex, religion, national origin, disability, and family status. And these buyer love letters can appeal to those internal biases that all of us have, and this can lead to a violation of the Fair Housing Act. So the Fair Housing Act was signed into law by Lyndon B. Johnson on April 11th, 1968. And prior to this, lenders engaged in a practice called redlining. And what that was is basically lenders would refuse to offer loans to individuals based on their race or ethnicity. And what the Homeowners Loan Corporation did is they came up with what was known as residential security maps. And these were basically maps of the city that were sectioned off into 4 different districts. The green district was the best of the best district. Pretty much anybody could get a loan who lived in that part of town. The blue district was pretty good, some risk, but overall pretty good. And then you had the yellow district. That was a declining area. That's where lenders really needed to pay attention. There's a lot of potential for people to default on their loan. And then finally, you had the red line district. Now that was the worst of the worst. If you lived in the red line district, you could not get a loan for a home. So when the Federal Housing Administration began funding housing, they would tell lenders that they could sell homes to whites only. And then they took it a step further and said that they would refuse to give loans to homes that were even near African American communities. And in defense of that practice, they simply said, if African Americans would buy up these homes, that would decrease the value of those properties. Now, all of that was made illegal in 1968 after about 30 years of discrimination. And studies have shown that the effects of that can probably still be seen today. For example, African American home ownership is at about 40% across America. Among whites, it's at about 70%. Now, I realize there's probably several reasons for this, but one of the reasons is that by the time the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, about 30 years of increased prices had ensued. So by the time African Americans were able to finally buy homes again, they simply couldn't afford to buy them anymore. And that discrimination probably affected the education in those areas as well. Education is usually funded by property taxes, so the lower the property values, the less money you have. And we all know the less money you have, the worse the education. So I think all of us can agree that discrimination in all forms is bad. I think we'd all be outraged if we heard somebody say, I'm not gonna sell my property to that individual because of that person's skin color. That's discrimination to the T. That's wrong. We all hate that. Which, by the way, is why I am against critical race theory. Critical race theory is simply discriminating against white people because of their skin color. I actually made a video on that, and you can check that out right here if you'd like to. The problem with love letters is that they can trigger these implicit biases that people have. By saying, my children would love to play in this house, what you as a buyer are doing is, in essence, you're trying to get the seller to look to your offer and choose your offer because you have children. Well, isn't that discriminating against those who don't have children? What if the buyers of another offer that has been submitted can't have children? What if they have a medical condition that prohibits them from having children? Wouldn't that be a discrimination against them? Would that be fair? Now, if a seller does choose an offer because of one of these 7 protected classes, let's say a seller chooses an offer because the potential buyer has children, that seller could be held liable for breaking the Fair Housing Act. And what most people don't know is the buyer may also be held liable as well. So what the National Association of Realtors has done is they have recently come out and told all of their realtors to tell their clients not to write buyer love letters anymore. And in fact, in several states, it's actually illegal to write a letter. None of us have unlimited money, so how do you get your offer accepted over another one? First of all, you could get a letter from the lender that not only says that the clients have been pre-approved for a loan, but you could have the lender indicate what their credit score is and maybe give a bit more information about what their financial position is. That's gonna go a long ways in assuring the seller that you actually will be able to get the funding to purchase the house that you're interested in. But you can also turn to the sellers and ask them what they are looking for. Are they looking for a rent back? Would they like to stay in the house for a month or maybe up to 2 months after closing so that they can find a home? If you want to be really competitive, maybe offer some of that rent back at a low cost or for free. That's going to make your offer look really good in the eyes of the sellers, because at the end of the day, what they are interested in is what benefits them the most. Do the sellers have any appraisal concerns? Maybe you as the buyer can help make up some of the difference if an appraisal comes in low. Or maybe you have some flexibility on the closing. Can you close quickly? Can you have a delayed closing if that's what the sellers want? Maybe you can offer some non-refundable earnest money. All of these questions can be answered if the buyer's agent just picks up the phone and calls the seller's agent. I've talked to agents before who've said that I was the only buyer's agent who actually contacted them about their listing, and they chose my client's offer because I simply picked up the phone and talked to them. And another thing that I like to do that I don't think hardly anybody does, I like to assure the seller's agent that I, as the buyer's agent, am gonna do everything in my power possible to bring this transaction to closing. I'm gonna answer my phone, I'm gonna deal with problems that arise, and I'm gonna be there when there's a question. Because as most of you probably know, realtors have a pretty bad reputation of going AWOL and not answering their phones. Now, since I work with a lot of buyers who are moving into the area, I have a lot of people asking me what the best neighborhoods are. Now, another thing that is protected under the Fair Housing Act is the discouraging of a purchase or rental of a property. That's called steering. What happens is the agent will steer a client into a particular neighborhood or into a particular community. So for example, let's say that I know you work for a tech company and you make pretty good money. I'm gonna assume that you are a particular kind of a person. And so if I assume that and then steer you into a community that I think fits that particular kind of a person that I think you are, what I'm doing there is I'm actually engaging in 2 forms of discrimination. I'm discriminating against you because I'm assuming that you are a particular kind of a person, and I'm discriminating against the community that I'm steering you to because I'm assuming that everybody in that community is a particular kind of a person as well. If you were to ask me, show me some houses near a river, I can do that. Or if you ask me to show you some houses that are near a shopping center or near a particular school, I can do that. But what I can't do is limit a search that is based on the 7 protected classes of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. That's discrimination. I hate discrimination. I don't want to engage in it. And my guess is you probably wouldn't want me to either. Now, if you'd like to do some more research on your own to decide where you think you might want to live, why don't you check out these community highlight videos right here.